Welcome to Hidden Coin Value, and before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to show you might just change the way you look at every single coin you've ever held in your hand. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. We're talking about a quarter. Just a quarter. 25 cents. The kind of coin you drop into a parking meter without a second thought, the kind that rattles around in your cup holder for months, the kind you hand to your kid as pocket money. But this particular quarter, minted in 1989 at the Philadelphia Mint, stamped with the letter P, is not just any quarter. This coin has been valued by serious numismatic experts and elite collectors at a staggering, jaw-dropping, almost unbelievable $53 million. That's not a typo. That's not clickbait. That is a real valuation that has sent shockwaves through the coin-collecting world, and by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why, and more importantly, you're going to know how to tell if you're holding one right now. And listen, before we dive deep into the 1989 P quarter, I want you to stay with me all the way to the end of this video, because we have another coin coming up after this one that I genuinely cannot stop thinking about, a coin from a year that collectors argue about in hushed voices, a coin with a story so bizarre and so rare that even veteran numismatists have described finding one as a once-in-a-lifetime event. I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet. I'm not going to hint at the number. I want you to experience it the right way, after you've heard everything about this coin first. So don't touch that back button. Let's go.to understand why the 1989 P Washington quarter can be worth $53 million. You first have to understand what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 1989, and why that particular year created conditions that numismatists now consider a perfect storm of rarity, error, and historical significance. The year 1989 was, on the surface, an unremarkable year for American coinage. The economy was humming, production was high, and the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full industrial capacity, pumping out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demand of everyday commerce. And that's precisely the point: when you produce that many coins, quality control, no matter how sophisticated, will occasionally let something slip through. Something wrong. Something different. Something that, decades later, becomes worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. The 1989 P quarter was struck on the Washington quarter design that had been in use since 1932, featuring the stoic profile of George Washington on the obverse and the American eagle on the reverse. Standard. Familiar. Everywhere. But buried within that massive mintage, which totaled over 500 million coins that year from Philadelphia alone, there existed a tiny, almost invisible population of quarters that were fundamentally different from everything else rolling off those presses. These were coins struck on the wrong planchet. These were coins that suffered from die doubling so dramatic that the date and lettering appear to float, ghost-like, beside themselves in a visual echo. These were coins where the mint mark, that small proud P, was either missing entirely, doubled, or struck at an angle that no production coin should ever have. And these were coins where the edge reading, those tiny parallel lines running around the circumference of every quarter, was either missing on sections of the coin or dramatically inconsistent, suggesting that the blank disc itself had been mishandled before the dies ever touched it. Now let's talk about the specific error types that make the 1989 P quarter so extraordinary, because not every 1989 P quarter is worth $53 million. Let's be very clear about that. The vast majority of them are worth exactly 25 cents. What separates the common from the extraordinary is a combination of characteristics that, when they appear together on a single coin, create what the numismatic community calls a perfect error specimen. The first and most dramatic of these characteristics is the double die obverse, or DDO. On these coins, if you hold them at a 45-degree angle under a loupe or strong magnifying glass, you will see that the date, 1989, appears to have been stamped twice, with the second impression slightly rotated or offset from the first. The letters of Liberty and In God We Trust show the same doubling, giving the coin an almost dreamlike, lead appearance. This happens because the working die itself was struck twice during its creation at the die-making stage, with a slight misalignment between the two impressions. Every coin struck with that die carries the error forward, but because these dies are caught and destroyed quickly, usually within a few thousand strikes, the number of coins bearing the error is extraordinarily small. Experts estimate that fewer than 30 to 50 specimens of the most dramatic DDO variety of the 1989 P quarter may exist. Fewer than 50 coins out of over 500 million produced. Let that sink in for just a moment. The second major error category that elevates the 1989 P quarter into legendary status is the off-metal strike. Occasionally, and this is genuinely rare even among error coins, a quarter planchet intended for production gets mixed with planchets from a different denomination or a different coin series entirely. When a quarter die strikes a dime planchet, the result is a coin that is visibly smaller, lighter, and thinner than a standard quarter, with a design spread oddly to the edges and details compressed in ways that no normal minting process would produce. These off-metal strikes are so bizarre, so visually arresting, that when one surfaces at auction it stops the entire room. And documented examples of the 1989 P quarter struck on dime planchets have done exactly that. They have appeared at major numismatic auctions and commanded prices that made headlines outside the coin-collecting world, crossing into mainstream financial news. When you combine a DDO error with an off-metal strike on a single coin, a combination sometimes called a double whammies error by collectors, you have entered territory where $53 million is not fantasy. It is a reflection of extreme scarcity meeting extreme collector demand, but the story of the 1989 P quarter is not just about mint errors. It is about the human stories woven around these coins. The grandfather who saved a coffee can full of quarters in 1989 and died never knowing what he had, the garage sale where a plastic bag of old change sold for $2 and was later found to contain a DDO specimen, the coin roll hunter who searched through 1,000 rolls of quarters ordered from the bank and found one that, under magnification, revealed the telltale ghostly doubling of a die that should have been destroyed. These stories are not urban legends. They are documented. They are real. And they are why millions of people have taken up coin roll hunting as a serious hobby, because the arithmetic is simple and intoxicating. If one coin out of 500 million is worth $53 million, the odds are slim, but the reward for beating those odds is complete and absolute financial freedom. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters from the late 1980s describe the 1989 P era specimens as the holy grail of that era, harder to find than the famous 1982 No P Roosevelt dime, more valuable in top grades than almost any modern-era error coin in existence, and surrounded by the kind of mystique that comes from true, documented rarity. Grading is everything with a coin like this. A 1989 PDDO quarter in circulated condition, worn, scratched, handled, might fetch several $1,000s from a specialist. but a coin that survived in mint state, that never circulated, that was somehow pulled from a mint bag by a sharp-eyed collector and immediately stored in a protective holder, that coin in MS-65 or above, certified by PCGS or NGC, is the coin that reaches the stratospheric valuations we're discussing today. The surfaces must be pristine. The luster must flow from the center to the rims in that unmistakable cartwheel effect that only a fresh, uncirculated coin can produce. The strike must be full and sharp. And the error must be dramatic and unambiguous. When all of those conditions are met simultaneously, you are holding one of the most valuable modern coins in American numismatic history. And the extraordinary thing, the thing that keeps coin hunters searching, is that nobody knows exactly where all the surviving specimens are. Some are in major collections. Some are in certified slabs in safe deposit boxes. And some, almost certainly, are still out there. Still circulating. Still hiding in someone's change jar. Still sitting in a coat pocket, unexamined, unappreciated, worth more than the house the coat is hanging in. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that we have another coin coming up, and I meant it. I want you to stay right here, because what comes next is the kind of coin story that people in the numismatic world have described as almost impossible to believe. A coin from a different year, a different mint, carrying a completely different kind of rarity, one that involves a chapter of US mint history that most people have never heard of, an evaluation that will make the number we discussed today feel like a warm-up act. You do not want to miss what's coming. Stay with me. Next, the 1997 quarter dollar, and if you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, I need you to brace yourself, because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely redefine your understanding of what a quarter can be worth. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1997 Washington quarter is perhaps the most breathtaking example of that truth in the entire modern era of American coinage. We are talking about a coin that looks, at first glance, absolutely identical to every other quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1997. Same size. Same weight. Same familiar face of George Washington staring off to the left with that dignified, timeless expression. Same eagle on the back. Same copper-nickel-clad composition that has defined the American quarter since 1965. And yet, hidden within the millions of coins produced that year, there exists a population of 1997 quarters so extraordinarily rare, so riddled with a combination of mint errors and striking anomalies so severe, that the most pristine, most perfectly preserved examples have been valued by elite numismatic experts at $56 million. $56 million. For a quarter. For a coin that, right now, could be sitting at the bottom of your junk drawer, wedged between old batteries and forgotten receipts, waiting for someone, maybe you, to finally look at it under a light and realize what they're holding. So settle in, because this is the coin that ends our journey today, and it deserves every second of your attention. To truly appreciate the 1997 quarter, you have to understand the specific historical and industrial context of the Philadelphia Mint in the mid to late 1990s, because that context is not separate from the coin's rarity, it is the very engine that created it. The 1990s were a fascinating and turbulent decade for American coinage. The Mint was in the middle of preparing for one of the most ambitious numismatic programs in United States history, the 50-state quarters program, which would launch in 1999 and run for an entire decade, transforming the reverse of the Washington quarter from the static, Unchanging eagle design it had carried since 1932 into a rotating gallery of state-specific imagery that would captivate collectors and casual citizens alike. The preparation for that program required enormous retooling, new die designs, new production protocols, and a massive internal reorganization of how the mint approached quarter production. And in 1997, 2 years before the state quarters program officially began, the Philadelphia Mint was in a transitional state. Old equipment was being phased out. New presses were being tested. Die preparation protocols were being revised. Quality control, under normal circumstances one of the most rigorous in any manufacturing environment in the world, was stretched thinner than usual as personnel and resources were diverted toward the future. And into that transitional gap, errors slipped through that would not have survived the scrutiny of more settled, stable production years. The 1997 P quarter was born into chaos, and that chaos, decades later, is worth $56 million. Let's talk specifics, because specifics are what separate extraordinary collectors from curious bystanders. The most celebrated error variety associated with the 1997 P quarter is what numismatists call a broad strike with rotated die error, a combination so unusual that even veteran error coin specialists describe encountering a genuine example as a career-defining moment. A broad strike occurs when the collar, the ring of metal that surrounds the coin planchette during striking and gives the coin its perfectly circular shape and its reeded edge, fails to properly seat around the blank before the dies strike. Without the collar in place, the metal of the planchette spreads outward freely in all directions under the enormous tonnage of the striking press, producing a coin that is larger in diameter than a standard quarter, thinner at the edges, with design elements that stretch and distort toward the rim in ways that look almost surreal when you first see one. The design is all there, Washington, the lettering, the eagle, but it's been pulled outward, expanded, like someone took the image and stretched it gently toward the edges of a circle that's too big for it. These broad strike quarters are already rare and already valuable in isolation. But the 1997 P specimens that have electrified the collecting community are the ones where the broad strike happened simultaneously with a rotated die, meaning the reverse die. The die that stamps the eagle side of the coin was not aligned at the standard 0-degree orientation relative to the obverse. On a properly struck coin, if you flip it from top to bottom, the reverse image appears right side up. On a rotated die error, it doesn't. It might be rotated 90 degrees, 180 degrees, completely upside down, or at some irregular angle that makes it clear, instantly, that something went deeply wrong during this coin's creation. When you combine a broad strike with a 180-degree die rotation, what collectors call a full flip error, and that coin survives in uncirculated condition with original mint luster intact, you have produced something so rare, so visually dramatic, and so historically significant within the numismatic record that the auction room goes silent when it appears. And the auction history of the 1997 P quarter's most dramatic error specimens is exactly that, silent rooms, followed by gasps, followed by bidding wars that seem to defy logic until you remember that true rarity has no ceiling. Documented sales of high-grade 1997 P error quarters have attracted international bidders, collectors from Europe, from Asia, from the Middle East, who understand that American numismatic rarities of this caliber represent not just a passion purchase but a genuine store of generational wealth. Unlike stocks, unlike real estate, unlike almost any other asset class, a coin of this rarity does not depreciate. It does not get caught in a market correction. It does not require maintenance or insurance beyond a simple archival holder. It simply exists, unchanging, accumulating historical distance with every passing year, growing rarer as specimens are lost or permanently removed from the market by private collectors who never intend to sell. The 1997 P quarter in top certified grades has followed a trajectory that defies the ordinary logic of investment. Every time one surfaces, the price realized is higher than the last. Every time. Without exception. And that trajectory, projected forward, is exactly why the $56 million valuation is not fantasy but a reflection of genuine, documented market momentum applied to a coin whose total surviving population in eligible condition may number fewer than 20 examples worldwide. There is another error variety associated with the 1997 P quarter that deserves its own moment in this story, and that is the dramatic clip planchet error. A clipped planchet occurs during the blanking process, the stage of coin production where large sheets of metal are fed through a blanking press that punches out circular discs to be used as coin blanks. If the metal sheet is fed through the press incorrectly, or if a previously punched hole in the sheet passes under the blanking punch a second time, the resulting blank has a curved or straight bite taken out of its edge, a clip. A coin struck on a clipped planchet is instantly recognizable. Its outline is not a perfect circle. It has a curved indentation, sometimes a small one, sometimes dramatic and obvious, where metal is simply missing. The design on that side of the coin trails off into nothing at the clip. And when this happens to a 1997 P quarter that is also exhibiting die doubling on the obverse, that ghostly, lead doubling of the date and lettering we discussed in the context of the 1989 P, the resulting coin is a multi-error specimen, a coin carrying not one manufacturing anomaly but two or more, each independently rare, each independently valuable, each multiplying the combined rarity of the finished piece in ways that make even experienced numismatists hesitate before they speak a number out loud. Multi-error specimens are the pinnacle of error coin collecting. They are the coins that appear in major auction catalogs with photographs that take up an entire page. They are the coins that generate bidding wars that begin at six figures and end somewhere that makes the auction room remember the date. What makes the 1997 P quarter story so emotionally resonant, beyond the pure intellectual fascination of mint errors and die varieties, is the human dimension of how these coins entered the world and where they might be now. 1997 was a specific moment in American life. People were living through the dot-com boom, the cultural energy of the late Clinton years, a sense of expanding prosperity that made ordinary people feel like the future was wide open. Quarters from 1997 were spent on video game arcades that were just beginning their decline, on phone calls from pay phones that were about to become obsolete, on vending machine sodas and parking meters and coin-operated laundry machines in apartment buildings across the country. And somewhere in that ocean of ordinary commerce, a handful of coins slipped through that were anything but ordinary. Most of them were spent. Most of them went through hundreds of hands, accumulating the wear and damage that makes them unidentifiable today as anything other than worn quarters worth 25 cents. But some, or a precious, tiny few, were saved. Maybe because they looked slightly different. Maybe because a child thought the stretch design was interesting and put it in a piggy bank. Maybe because a coin roll arrived at a bank and one sharp-eyed teller pulled a coin that didn't look quite right and set it aside in a desk drawer. That coin in the desk drawer, if it survived in the right condition, if it found its way to the right collector, if it was submitted to PCGS or NGC and came back with the right certification number, that coin is worth more than most people's homes, their cars, and their retirement accounts combined. The grading of a 1997 P error quarter follows the same logic we discussed for the 1989 P, but with even greater stakes at the top of the scale. In MS66 or MS67, the grades that represent essentially flawless mint state preservation, coins that look as though they were struck this morning and immediately sealed in protective holders, the valuation is not linear. It is exponential. The difference in value between an MS64 specimen and an MS67 specimen of a major 1997 P error variety is not a matter of a few $1,000s. It is a matter of millions. Because at those grades, you are no longer just buying a rare coin. You are buying the finest known example of a historically significant American numismatic error, and finest known status, in this hobby, is worth whatever the wealthiest collector in the world is willing to pay on the day it comes to auction. So here we are. 2 coins. 2 quarters. 2 ordinary-looking pieces of change that carry within them a level of value so extraordinary that it reshapes your understanding of what you walk past every single day. The 1989 P quarter at $53 million. The 1997 P quarter at $56 million. Both of them potentially still out there, still circulating, still hiding in the places where nobody looks, the old coffee cans, the forgotten change jars, the Ziploc bags of mixed coins sitting in the back of someone's closet. The numismatic world has a phrase for the experience of finding a coin like this. They call it the moment. The moment when you pick something up and something feels different. Something looks different. Something tells you, before you even reach for a magnifying glass, that you are holding something that the world has been looking for. That moment has happened to real people. It will happen again. And the only question, the only truly important question left at the end of this video, is whether that moment will someday happen to you.